based on what he and Nick Sirianni want. I mean, I don't think he's going to go rogue or anything like that and call like 30 pass plays in a row. Have Jalen Hurts throw deep every time. I mean, he's going to do it within the scale of what he and Nick Sirianni, want out of the offense. Like if it means, maybe here and there you take a gamble and stuff, like I think that's okay. He's proven that he can call an offense before. I mean, he was there in with the Chargers with Justin Herbert, calling the plays, and that was Herbert's rookie year and stuff, so he did pretty well.
A Football Friday here on Birds 365. Mac, and Martin Frank from the Delaware News Journal jumping aboard with us here. Martin, we got 11 days before camp opens up. What do you do with yourself just before you got to go to work basically every day for 8 months? That slight downtime is dwindling and dripping away. What are you getting in before you got to go back to work?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that, Jody, because I remember you guys probably know Bob Brookover. He used to cover the Phillies for many years. And he said he used to get ready for spring training by going to a fitness center, standing in the middle of the fitness center for like 2 hours, just standing there and then talking to people as they went along. So I'm going to stand outside. You got to get ready for the weather, obviously. So I'm going to stand outside my driveway for 2 hours straight, just kind of standing around in the hot sun, getting ready and stuff. So I'll be ready for that.
Make sure you don't talk to anybody. Just stand out there for 2 hours, Martin, and then start talking to people. Because you got it. Hey, practice makes perfect. The Eagles don't understand that, but we understand it. We got to get ready for this thing. We got to. Jody just depressed me, by the way, Martin. We got to get ready for this grind coming up. Although who knows? The Eagles, I joke, let's get those. Let's get moving, Philadelphia Eagles, with those credential requests. But Martin, you are counting down. This is the season of list, as we say, and you are counting down your 9 most important Eagles as we lead up to camp. I can guess who number 1 is going to be. Obviously, you're not going to give it away, but what number? You're on 8, I believe, and that 8, was we were just talking about Hassan Reddick. It's interesting, Hassan, because they don't have much depth behind him. But as I kind of mentioned to Jody, and I don't know if you heard when you're in the green room, if they lost a player like him, they're just going to change their entire defense. They're not going to use that player. So that makes them pretty stinking important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because last year, they wanted to play that way, but they didn't have Hassan Reddick. I mean, they had Jannard Avery. And so when you look at, Hassan Reddick compared to Jannard Avery, I mean, that's a massive upgrade and everything. And that kind of gives them flexibility now to actually play the kind of style that Jonathan Gannon wants to play and do it effectively. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's had 23.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So, they have now that flexibility to have a guy, from that linebacker position who can rush the passer, to go along with the 4 guys on the defensive line. So that makes them much stronger, but like you said, if Hassan Reddick were to get hurt and miss significant time, then they're back to where they were technically last year with Jannard Avery, even though Jannard Avery isn't there, but similar type of guys, unproven and not nearly as good as Hassan Reddick. So yeah, he's a very important part of that defense, going into this season.
Let me follow up with you with the other thing I hit with John in the first segment of the show today. If Dallas Goedert goes down, the Eagles are in a whole hell of a lot of trouble.
Right.
Would you think the Eagles will just go with what they have on the roster now? Some guys who have either limitations, who have no idea as rookies, or do you think Howie Roseman is contemplating, maybe even talking to some free agent tight ends, and he will bring someone in maybe before camp starts or just as camp starts? Or do you think they just roll the dice and go, hey, we'll play this by ear as we go. We'll keep an eye on everything, including the waiver wire, but we know at some point we're probably going to add a tight end. How do you think the Eagles right now look at their backup tight end position?
Well, I think it's a situation where they want to play more, 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers. So, I mean, if Dallas Goedert were to be out for maybe a game or two, I think obviously they would get by with what they have. If it's more long term, I mean, there's always Richard Rodgers, as a veteran guy. I mean,
yeah.
he's still on the
he's still here.
90-man roster.
So 90. Yep.
You got a veteran guy there. Jack Stoll, I mean, he was okay last year. They like, Calcaterra and everything. So, maybe you roll the dice, if it's not a long-term type of injury, you obviously you're going to emphasize the 11 personnel a lot more. You go with, they're going to do that anyway. I mean, Dallas Goedert is obviously a big part of the passing offense and everything like that. But once, I think like they could get by short term if he were to have it, suffer an injury and everything like that. If it's more like a long-term season-ending type of deal, then yeah, they would probably look at the waiver wire and try to make a trade before, the end of October deadline, and address it that way. But I think if it were a short-term type of deal, I think they would get by without Goedert going more 11 personnel, which they're going to do anyway. So
yeah, and Tyree Jackson as well. He's going to start on the PUP list, but he got hurt. I think that game was January 8th, week 18. So 9-month injury. It's basically September 8th, 3 days before the start of the regular season. He could be in the mix relatively early in the regular season. So just put Tyree Jackson in the back of your mind as well, because the Eagles still really like him as a prospect as well. But I want to shift towards the expectations of this team, Martin, and how that can weigh both positively and negatively on a team with a young coaching staff, a young head coach entering his second year, and a young quarterback, third year, but second year as a starter. I think we all know Jalen Hurts' mentality, his work ethic. He tends to be very capable of drowning out the rat poison, as he likes to call it. But how do you think expectations you've been around numerous teams over the year. Can that go in a positive direction, negative direction, or do we make too much out of that?
I think it can go in a positive direction. Like, you look at the composition of the team, you got your veteran guys like Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. All these guys have been around. They've been on teams that have gotten off to bad starts and totally fallen apart. So they're kind of like a guiding light, so to speak. They're not going to let's say if the Eagles get off to a slow start, they lose that opener in Detroit, which would obviously be a travesty. And, everybody would think the sky is falling and stuff. But, they're the kind of guys who would be able to rally the team around them and stuff like that. I mean, Nick Sirianni obviously only going into his second year as a head coach. I mean, even last year, he wasn't the kind of, when they got off to that 2-5 start, he wasn't the kind of guy who was going to panic and say, "Oh my God, what are we doing? What are we doing?" and stuff. In fact, he went to the flower pot analogy, and they turned it around. I mean, he showed that he's able to adjust to some extent, to overcome a slow start. So I think, with the veterans they have on the team, the fact they went through it last year and didn't fall apart. I mean, it seemed like it was getting pretty close at times, especially after that Las Vegas game in Las Vegas, where Fletcher Cox was pretty much trashing Jonathan Gannon and his defense. And, you kind of thought, oh, this is where it's going to fall apart, and it didn't. So they've kind of already been through it before, even though they're young. They rallied around Jalen Hurts. They rallied around the veterans, and, they switched to the run-based offense and everything like that. So I think they would be able to handle the expectations. I don't think they're going to get too carried away by everyone saying, oh, the NFC East is wide open. It's there for the Eagles to take and everything. I think they know they're a good team, and I think, they're going to have to, deal with the expectations. And I think they've proven that they can. So, I don't think it'll be a major factor for them.
All right, Martin, put Eagle Nation aside for a second. I only want Martin Frank's opinion. What is your confidence level in Shane Steichen as the full-time, until otherwise told, every down play caller for the Philadelphia Eagles? You guys got a chance to talk to him basically every week, right? You got both of the coordinators every single week during the season.
Yep.
And the whole second half of the season, maybe more than that, Steichen was calling plays. He wasn't telling you guys he was calling all the plays.
Right.
Kind of came as a surprise to all of us when Doug unearthed that during the offseason, but we know that's going to be the case going into the season. What's your confidence level in Shane Steichen, Eagle play caller?
I would say on a scale from like 1 to 10, I'd give it like a 7. I think, he knows how to call an offense based on what he and Nick Sirianni want. I mean, I don't think he's going to go rogue or anything like that and call like 30 pass plays in a row, have Jalen Hurts throw deep every time. I mean, he's going to do it within the scale of what he and Nick Sirianni, want out of the offense. Like if it means, maybe here and there you take a gamble and stuff, like I think that's okay. He's proven that he can call an offense before. I mean, he was there in with the Chargers with Justin Herbert, calling the plays, and that was Herbert's rookie year and stuff. So he did pretty well. So I think he's got the knowledge, the basic fundamentals as far as being able to call an offense and stuff like that. So I don't really worry too much about it. I think if he were to like start like doing something out of the ordinary or something like that's totally against what Nick Sirianni's doing, Nick Sirianni get on the headset and say, Shane, we're calling this, stop, maybe turn off
Shane's
his
Shane's going rogue. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is why, Martin, the bigger part of that to me is not the play calling. I think that's overrated anyway. That's about preparation during the week. But you don't typically do this as a young coach. You're brought in as the offensive guy. And remember at the time, they were kicking Doug in the butt out the door. The offense isn't inventive enough, and it's got to get more creative, and all the nonsense you hear all over the rest of the NFL as well. It's not unique to Philadelphia, but he's brought in as the young offensive whiz kid, and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And all of a sudden he says, you know what? And he, by the way, he's right, but he says, this is a big freaking job. I got other stuff I got to do. And I'm this close to Shane Steichen and Kevin Patullo. They can handle that part of it, and I can concentrate on the larger job. I think it's great. Jody knows that. I think it's phenomenal. Yeah. But you don't see that with young coaches unless it's taken away from them, which there's no evidence that's been the case in Philadelphia. Do you look at it as a positive that Nick Sirianni was willing to do that and wasn't worried about his ego and saying, I got to call the plays. I got to have it.
Yeah, actually, I find it kind of refreshing because, I remember when Doug Peterson took over, that was like one of the first questions he was asked, like, who's going to run the offense? And he's like, I am, even though he just hired Frank Reich, Frank Reich's been around the block a few times. He knows what he's doing. And, it was the same way when Chip Kelly was here, it was Chip Kelly's offense. He was going to call all the plays and everything like that, so I don't understand. I just never really understood why like a head coach felt compelled to also be the play caller and everything. I know it's his team and ultimately his responsibility and everything like that. But like when you're a head coach, that's a lot. I mean, you've got to be basically the CEO. You've got to be the guy who like runs the entire team. And then you're also calling the plays on offense. I mean, it just seemed like a lot. And that's why you have an offensive coordinator. I mean, that's the job of the offensive coordinator, to run the offense. So, yes, obviously during the week, like you mentioned, the preparation is key. And, there's nothing to suggest that Sirianni doesn't have a big hand in that offense and in what they're going to call during the game. So it's, Monday to Saturday, Sirianni has his hand in everything, and he knows exactly what kind of plays are going to be called on Sunday. Now, the actual plays themselves, that's probably up to Shane Steichen, but that's in the framework of what they prepared for from Monday to Saturday. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised more head coaches aren't. I'm surprised so many head coaches are also calling the plays on offense. I mean, I just think that's a lot of work to do.
There's just some of them that it's in their blood. And you mentioned one, Martin, and that was Doug Peterson. Doug took pride in the fact that he was calling every single play. He didn't want to give up that responsibility. He had no desire to be a CEO coach, and he did win a Super Bowl, so you can't knock him for it. All right, I want to jump to the other coordinator, the other side of the ball, and that, of course, is Jonathan Gannon. The Eagles upgraded the pieces that Gannon has to work with. When things weren't at their best, and he had a good season. I don't want to knock his overall season, but there were games where he got called on the carpet pretty good. A lot of us said, yeah, but he didn't have everything. He has a system. He knows what he wants to do. They just didn't have the talent to be able to pull off what Jonathan Gannon wanted. Well, he's not going to get that break this year because they've upgraded the talent, got him a big DT to play in the middle of the line, got him a pass rushing edge guy, got him an upgrade at the other corner, of course, from Darius Slay. How much pressure would you say is on Jonathan Gannon coming into the year?
Well, I mean, a lot. I mean, all the things you mentioned about last year are absolutely right. And yet he was still a finalist for one or two head coaching jobs. So, I mean, people obviously bought the fact that, hey, he's got a pretty good defensive scheme. He just didn't have the guys to execute it as much last season. Well, now he has the guys. I mean, like you mentioned, you got James Bradbury, you got Slay, they brought in two linebackers, if you count Kaiser White and also Nakobe Dean, like three down linebackers basically who have speed, who can kind of cover and rush the passer and stuff like that. You upgraded the defensive line. You added Hassan Reddick. You drafted Jordan Davis in the first round to go with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. So, there's no reason why the Eagles shouldn't have a good defense this year. And obviously that will reflect positively on Jonathan Gannon if they do. I mean, this is probably going to be his last year here as a defensive coordinator, because obviously if the Eagles do well, he's going to be a head coach next year. And, if they don't do well, he might be coaching somewhere else, maybe a linebacker coach or something like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Jonathan Gannon, and the Eagles pretty much, it's kind of like the same thing on offense with Jalen Hurts. The Eagles went out and improved the offense around him. So he's basically saying, Jalen, this is your team. If you can't make it happen, then we got to find a new quarterback. And it's the same thing on defense with Gannon. It's like, you want to play this defensive style here, we got you the guys who can do it. So it's on you now to make sure it happens.
I'd expand that to the whole coaching staff, Martin, because, and I've been talking about this, it's very rare where you bring an entire coaching staff back, the exact same coaching staff. Either, fire some guys or guys get promoted. And we know the history with Jeffrey Lurie recently. And then I go back to those expectations. So this year you're saying to yourself, well, if the Eagles live up to their expectations and they're a really good team, as you mentioned, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen even might get promotions elsewhere and be out of here. If they don't live up to those expectations, we need a Mike Rowe or Carson Wallace, Martin. Somebody's got to pay for that in Jeffrey Lurie's mind. So this is kind of it for this particular band getting back together. How important is that continuity on the whole coaching staff for the Eagles?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, everybody coming back this year knows exactly what's expected. I mean, you know what Shane Steichen's about on offense. Everybody coming back knows all about that. I mean, you have a few new players who have to, work into the system. Obviously, AJ Brown, but pretty much the entire offense is intact. And defense, it's the same way. I mean, everybody, Fletcher Cox knows what Jonathan Gannon's defense is. I mean, he's going to have to play screens. He knows that now. I mean, there's no there's no ambiguity anymore with that. I mean, and if he doesn't, well, they drafted Jordan Davis in the first round and he plays screens. So, there you go. He'll lose playing time, Hargrave made the Pro Bowl last year under Gannon. So he knows all about what Gannon's, he obviously works well in Gannon's system. You got your defensive ends, they rush the passer, they're not playing the wide nine that they did under Schwartz. They know that now they have to read and react. And, it's the same way in the secondary. I mean, Darius Slay, Pro Bowl player, had a great year last year. They had Bradbury, so now he's got better help. I mean, Steven Nelson was good last year, but, Bradbury's probably a step above that. So, yeah, there are no surprises. Everybody knows what's expected of them. And there's no excuse for them not to be ready to take that next step and everything like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to have that coaching continuity. I mean, it also speaks to the fact that, only Gannon really last year was in demand, and even that was kind of tepid. I mean, nobody was.
Well, I don't know. 3 interviews is pretty stinking good.
Yeah, he was a finalist. Nobody was clamoring for Shane Steichen or anything like that.
Kevin Patullo got an interview.
Yeah,
I think, and Brian Johnson got an interview in Green Bay.
And these are all young guys, so obviously they want to, at some point, I'm sure a head coaching is probably something they want to strive for and everything. So yeah, if they have a good year, those guys are going to get head coaching opportunities next season or the season after or whatever. But, so it helps the Eagles in the short term. In the long term, those guys will probably be gone if they're good. And if they're not, then they might be gone anyway.
All right, Martin, want to ask you about a couple of Eagle draft picks mid-round from just 2 years ago and who you think has the better chance of doing some significant contributing for the Eagles this year. And I refer to assuming health with both players. And I know it's probably a little bit of a stretch with each of these two players, but Davion Taylor and Kayvon Wallace, 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, 2020. Both the times have flashed, but then taken a step backwards and or gotten hurt. Eagles have kind of made advances at both of their position, which have pushed them into the background. So they're going to have to really flash to get into the mix to play this year. Give me your breakdowns on whether either one of those two can actually make contributions for the Eagles this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually, because I think the Eagles kind of answered it to some regard, especially a linebacker. I mean, Davion Taylor was a 3rd round pick in 2020, like you mentioned. And, they went out and signed Kaiser White for a year. They went out and drafted Nakobe Dean, in the 3rd round this past year. And he's, everyone's talking about him as being like a starter and all that. So I think that kind of pushes Davion Taylor back. I mean, we saw him play, he kind of came on the second, at the midway point last season. I think the Lions game is when he kind of got his chance, but then he got hurt, a knee injury, which turned out to, require surgery and stuff like that. So I just don't think he's really in their plans that much anymore. I mean, he's going to have to show something that he has not shown yet. I mean, that's the kind of thing, when they drafted him, he had the end-to-end speed to be one of those linebackers who could play every down, but he was also relatively new to the game of football because he barely played in high school because of religious reasons and stuff. So he had a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of intelligence, I guess, that he had to acquire in order to play that position. And I think they're starting to run out of patience. I mean, I think this is kind of like a wake-up call, a last chance for him because on the one hand, Kaiser White is only signed to a 1-year deal. So, Davion Taylor still kind of has a chance to earn a role and stuff, but it might not be this year. And as for Kayvon Wallace, I mean, I think it's a similar type of deal. Although I think his chances are a little bit better because, the two safeties, two veteran safeties, Jaquizy Tart and Anthony Harris only on 1-year deals. So
Marcus Epps is on a contract year as well. So
exactly. So yeah, right. Epps too. Epps is still kind of a young guy though. So if they wanted to keep him long term, they could probably do it pretty easily. So, there's still a chance for Kayvon Wallace, but I mean, they kind of made it clear that this year might not be that chance. I mean, I think they still like him and everything. I think he's got a better shot than Davion Taylor as far as sticking here long term.
All right, last one for me, Martin. Follow Martin online at mfranknfl on Twitter. Read him, DelawareOnline.com. His top 9 most important Eagles as he counts down his time to sitting around for, it's only going to be an hour, Martin. That's also a positive, not 2 hours. You only got to sit around an hour before you talk to people in the heat with Nick Sirianni. So that's that part's positive. But you kind of mentioned a little bit in Jody's question with Davion Taylor, Wallace. We mentioned it with Epps. Last year, the Eagles targeted their 2018 draft class for extensions. Jordan Mailata, Josh Sweat, Avonte Maddox, Dallas Goedert. They don't have to worry about it with the 2019 class because it's Andre Dillard. They declined the 5th-year option. We all know he's probably going to be gone after this season. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, we all know what's going on there. I forget who else is. Miles Sanders, they're not going to extend him yet. We'll see how that. And that's my question. Who is Howie Roseman going to target to get extended early? There's a number of options. I mentioned Marcus Epps, T.J. Edwards. They have a lot of 1-year players. They could go the Tim Jernigan route. Remember when they signed Tim Jernigan for 1 year and they just said, hey, he's pretty good. Let's extend him. They could do that with Bradbury and Kaiser White and a number of those Band-Aid players they brought in. Right. You have Javon Hargrave. You have Miles Sanders. Who is Howie Roseman going to target? That's the way he does business, to extend them early to maybe get a little bit of a cost-effective end game.
Well, I think you would have to look on the offensive line. I mean, a guy like Jack Driscoll, I think if they, obviously going into this season, you got a pretty good competition at right guard with Isaac Seumalo and Driscoll and also Cam Jurgens, I guess, who they drafted in the 2nd round. But if you see Driscoll as being like a future starter at right guard, I mean, maybe this is Isaac's last year. And maybe you try to lock up Driscoll.
They got to wait on Driscoll though. He's in Jalen's class, so that's why I didn't bring up Jalen. They have to wait on those guys till after the season.
Oh, okay, right. 2019.
Yeah. So the 1-year deal, guys. Javon Hargrave is on the final year of his deal. Miles is eligible, but we know how they feel about running back or nobody. Maybe they say, you know what? Yeah. We had a good 2018 class. That's why we extended guys. We didn't have a good 2019 class.
No. It's I mean, the 2019 class was pretty bad. But as far as Hargrave's concerned, it's going to cost a lot if they want to extend him. And, they just drafted.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's a good player.
That's a really interesting one because you also have Fletcher Cox, and you're probably, this is probably the last year for him. You do have Jordan Davis. You do have a couple young guys and stuff
Milton
like that.
Williams. People forget about Milton
Williams. Exactly. Yeah. So you might not want to break the bank for a guy like Hargrave. You might actually use that money instead of paying Hargrave is, going after another free agent, defensive tackle in the offseason and everything like that. I mean, someone who's younger than Hargrave, because I believe he's going to be 30.
He's going to be 30, yeah. He's going to be 30. So, he's a tough decision, Javon.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see a scenario where neither Hargrave nor Fletcher Cox come back next year. And you go with the 2 young guys. Maybe you sign a younger defensive tackle as a free agent. Miles Sanders, I don't think they're going to offer him an extension. I mean, I just don't see it with the running back. I mean, unless it's like a team-friendly deal, and I get the sense that Miles Sanders probably won't want a team-friendly deal when you can test free agency, and if he has a big year, somebody might pay him. But yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of like anybody who might, maybe
I think it's Epsy.
Maybe Epsy.
So do I.
Yeah.
You're not gonna. I'm sure. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm sure, but I would say the chances are that neither of the two veteran guys are going to be coming back, Anthony Harris or Tart. So, maybe you got to sign Epps, but I don't think that's going to be like a
no,
major, huge contract deal. But I can't really think of anybody else.
All right, Martin, last one for me, and I'm going to circle it back around to the quarterback. Camp opens up in 11 days, and the spotlight will get bigger on Jalen Hurts. It's been there all off season, but when he's actually out there on the field, it's only going to get brighter. Is there something Jalen can do, say, someone around Jalen can do or say that will help to build your confidence as an Eagle reporter? All right, understood the Eagles already committed to it. It's not going to be a change, but this has got a chance to work this year. The Eagles' investment in Jalen Hurts by not going out and getting another quarterback is going to pay dividends. What can Jalen Hurts do, if anything, to make Martin Frank more confident that, all right, the Eagles have their quarterback?
Well, I would think keeping his best friend, A.J. Brown, happy. I mean, if A.J. Brown is not happy with the way Jalen Hurts is playing, doesn't feel he's getting the ball enough, or Jalen Hurts is missing him when he's open, then A.J. Brown is not going to be Jalen Hurts' best friend anymore. And A.J. Brown has a nice 4-year extension worth $100 million, so A.J. Brown won't be the one leaving. That's going to be my biggest tell sign. I mean, Devontae Smith to an extent as well. We saw a couple times, especially at the end of that Giants game, where he stormed off the field because he felt he should have gotten the ball and everything. But, those two guys are pretty much going to determine how Jalen Hurts does this year and whether he's back next year. If those guys have a good season, and it's not even like each of them has to have 1,000 yards receiving, but, if they're a big part of the offense, if they're making plays and Hurts is getting them the ball on time and where it needs to be, then everyone's going to be happy, and Hurts could be the guy going forward beyond this year. And, if there's more scenes where Devontae Smith is storming off the field, or A.J. Brown is wondering why he ever became friends with Jalen Hurts in the first place, then you got problems, So I think that will be the biggest signal as to whether Jalen Hurts' future is with the Eagles or not.
Read him at the Delaware News Journal. He, like everybody else, got a good list going this week leading up to the beginning of camp. Do feel free to check it out. We always appreciate when Martin Frank cops aboard with us. MF, go hit the driveway, buddy. Get some sun in there.
Get
that full hour, and you better be ready.
I gotta wait till it gets a little hotter. Better simulate the heat of the day and stuff. And I might cut it down to like an hour and a half because of Nick Sirianni practices and stuff.
That's very true. Yeah. What I say, well, you probably only need to do 45 minutes. When you train for a marathon, you got to be able to run 13 miles, right? You got to do half. Once you get half in, so go out and do 45 minutes. You'll be a lock. You'll be ready for the first day. First day of grass time. Martin, a pleasure. Always. Thanks,
All right.
buddy.
Thanks. Yeah, look forward to it again.